What is really good, everybody? Welcome back to another podcast episode. Thank you once again for joining me today. I hope you liked the last episode. It was really fun. I went back and listened to it and thought, wow, I sound really good. It was the best I've ever sounded on a microphone. And today I wanted to kind of recap the lessons that I learned over the past 6, 7, 8 podcasts, mainly the podcasts that I had with guests. I kind of want to recap lessons that I learned from them, but also lessons that I learned maybe not from them, but just from doing a podcast with guests. So I have a couple of personal lessons that I learned, and then I have a couple of lessons that I learned from each of them that I want to get through. So hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are, hitting your goals, having a good day, and let's just jump right into it. So, a couple of personal lessons that I'll just group a couple of these together so we don't spend too much time on them are cadence of speech, continued fillers, my tone, lesser gaps, keeping up the pacing, right? So, all of those kind of go together in terms of the overall oration, narration, hosting of the podcast. Where in the past, I have the problem with stuttering, stammering, I have the problem with not enunciating, I have the problem with maybe rushing my words or mumbling or things like that. And one of the things that I love about content creation and recording myself is I get to see all of these things that I want to improve. And sometimes I just don't know that I'm doing them until I watch it back. So I really did enjoy and hated listening to myself go through a lot of fillers in the form of like and Usually for me, it's and like. In the past, it's been and so and things like that, where I have a really hard time stopping phrases and then starting new ones. I feel like there has to be some sort of continuing train in between two phrases. So instead of stopping a phrase and starting another one, I'll say, but something else, or and so something else, or and then trying to tie the two together when I feel like it's more effective just to stop it, then start a new phrase afterwards that doesn't tie back to the other one with and, but, etc. So any conjunctions, along with the cadence of speech. In the past, I've talked about how I sometimes sound robotic, or sorry, I had to take a little pause there. Uh, Going back to the cadence, there's times when I can sound robotic, or where I'll say one phrase after another, and I notice myself doing that when I think I'm trying to not use fillers, but I haven't fully completed my thoughts. And so I'm thinking as I'm talking, which then causes the aggressive pausing between words. So I'm trying to get better at that. I'm trying to understand what cadence is, understand what tone is with certain words, whether it's positive, negative inflections, comedic, humorous inflections, or serious inflections, along with if I'm enunciating, my cadence and everything just kind of goes with it. But if I'm mumbling, if I'm stuttering, if I'm stammering, it's really hard to bring everything else in together. A couple of the things that I've kind of have helped, just to give you guys, maybe if you're struggling with this as well, just to give you a few of the things that I've been working on to help with that, is opening my mouth more. Pause. I know it sounds weird, but I got this from when I was watching other people do podcasts, and I noticed I watch Chris Williamson a lot, as you may know by now, and when he talks, he really opens his mouth and enunciates, or he only opens his mouth as he's talking, like he'll widen his cheeks or open his teeth and pause. And once again, just pause for this entire conversation about opening mouths. But basically, you are opening up the pathway to speak clearly. I'm opening up more space for my teeth and tongue to say the words that I want to say, as opposed to keeping my jaw locked and my lips pursed to try and talk through them. I realized that I was doing that. So I thought, let me just try this whole opening my mouth thing and enunciating and see if that helps. And that literally clears up 90% of enunciation, is if you allow yourself to just open your mouth. Pause. So, it was funny thinking back to the times when I end up mumbling and people get on to me for, can you stop mumbling? Can you speak louder? Can you speak more clearly? The times when those have happened is when I haven't talked to somebody in a while, or maybe I've just been quiet for a while, so my jaw is locked shut. Maybe I'm clenching my jaw as like I just naturally clench. I'm not even upset about anything. And so when someone talks, I don't open my mouth. I just briefly just like bridge it, or I briefly just like crack it open to try and talk, but then I talk like this. And so you can't get any sound or um, enunciation out of your mouth. So that helped a ton. And then just kind of really being present and understanding as I'm talking what I'm doing, right? If I'm talking to anybody, I'm really understanding what am I saying, how am I saying it. I'm constantly present on how I feel when I'm talking, etc. So all of that has really helped with my rate of speech, my enunciation, without having to go to like a speech coach or any sort of speech therapy for that. In that respect, I still do stutter and stammer. You may have seen on the previous guest episodes when I'm talking to people like Yassir, Kia, Gabo, they're friends, but I don't talk to them daily like I do some people like Rishi, Andy, or Cam for that respect, or Jacob. So in those, it felt so much more casual, and so I was a little bit lax with uh, some of those guidelines. You know, I stammered a lot, stuttered a lot, just talk to friends as we talk. And then with the other guys, I was trying to be a bit more professional, a bit more official, etc. So I want to work on creating a consistency in terms of my oration. Even if I'm talking to friends, I still want to keep up that professionalism, that very good rate of speech and speaking. Just because I like to hear it back, I like to hear it when I'm listening to podcasts, and so I just assume that other people also like to hear it. You know what I mean? So that was those lessons. Now, going to my conversation with Rishi Desai, Rift, we talked a lot in that episode about our day to days, our daily habits, kind of, what I went through in October, what he's been through in the past. And we really landed on one core idea in there. And that idea really is the importance of building daily habits as key markers of foundation, of daily foundation. And what I mean by that is I talked a lot about how days where I make sure to brush my teeth, do my nasal rinse, wash my face, maybe get some stretching in, get some movement in the morning, water my plants, do the dishes, like things like daily menial tasks that really don't add any value to the overall goal or work that maybe you're trying to achieve. Those are the most important ones. I feel like those really ground you to be present in the day, because they're things that can easily be missed. Recently, I've been missing my morning brushing timings. I've been missing my morning. Like I literally missed it today. I just remembered I've been missing my morning element and momentous supplement that I take every morning at 9 a.m. I have an alarm that says take this right now. But there's days when I am out of the house at 9 a.m. or I'm not in a place where I can do it right then, but I forget to go back to it later, or I don't do it preemptively. So that's like the next step, right? Is me kind of being a little bit more flexible and thinking, okay, well, if I can't do it at 9, and I know I can't do it at 9, can I do it before 9? Or I need to make sure I get back to it once I'm free again. Things like that. And I believe that like those tasks really help you confirm that if nothing else good happens today, I know today was a good, or let me rephrase that. If nothing else happens today besides me doing these things, it's still a good day because I did these things. And nothing can change that. I was listening to a podcast from Chris Williamson and Sahil Bloom. It just came out, I think, this week or end of last week. And they had talked about kind of this concept of why people have bad days and good days, and why you don't always have a good day, don't always have a bad day, and things like that. And they said something which was interesting, where it was basically the idea that because there are people who want to make every day better than their last, they maybe sometimes intentionally don't have a great day, or they don't try to make every single day so great because then the next day has to be better than the current day. And that actually, that I related really heavily to, because I've always tried to figure out, why is it that I can't do the same exact thing every single day and be fine with it? And I think it's because there's times when I build the comparison between the days, and what will end up happening is there's a day when I'll do everything right, quote unquote right, everything the way I want to do it, and the next day I won't. I'm like, now today was bad, darn. But then, tomorrow, if I do everything right again, I can feel good. I can feel good that, yesterday I didn't do anything, but today I did everything again, better, But if you look at all 3 days together, day one, you did everything well too, So it's something that I'm trying to like work through in terms of how do I keep every day kind of the same baseline and not let myself fall through the cracks of these daily important tasks. Going back to a couple of the personal lessons, right? One of them was trying to listen before talking, but that slows down my mental processing. And so when I'm listening to somebody, when I have a guest on, I have some pre-built questions that I would love to talk to them about, but I do try to just let the conversation flow where it does. And if I feel like there's a natural ending point to a topic or an idea, I'll bring in one of the questions. So I just want to be more careful, especially since these are virtual and not in person. I want to be more careful with, allowing my guests to speak as much as they want to before I respond or interject. I want to make sure I'm listening to what they're saying in the moment, not listening to what I think they want to say or what they could be saying after I ask this question. I'm not trying to pre-ask a question before we even get to that point, right? A lot of times, and this happens in society all the time, where you're not actively listening, you're passively listening, but you're trying to find a gap to then insert your own comment, question, joke, anything like that. So I want to be very cognizant to not do that when I'm talking to somebody. And I don't think it's been as bad, but when I was watching it back, I just kind of noticed a couple of spots when I maybe tried to interject and they were still talking because I thought they were done talking. But I want to go back to being a good listener. I used to be like that back in high school, back when I was a youth. I used to be able to like look people in the eye and just sit and listen. But I also noticed that didn't give me much time to talk, or if I was listening, I couldn't process what they were saying fast enough to give maybe like a response back timely or something like that and keep the conversation going. Or there were a lot of things that I was aware of back then that I don't want them to affect me now, but there's two sides to this that can play out. So it's just something that I thought about while rewatching the episodes that I want to work on. In my interview with Cam Grayson, the biggest thing for me that I always learn from him in any conversation is one that he has very, very infectious confidence. He's very sure that things will go well. But what really stood out to me in this one was he's very confident because he has a very strong support system that he's fostered around him. He is able to trust in his peers, his friends, people that he works with to help him get the job done. And therefore, he doesn't have to, maybe he doesn't worry as much about, is it going to be good? Am I going to be able to pull this off? What happens if it doesn't work? He doesn't have to worry about that because he trusts the people around him, and the people around him are competent, and they help him get the job done. So that is big lesson for me to not just find my competent support system, but trust in them, reach out to them, lean on them as I need, because they're there. And, If they came to me, I would want them to lean on me, and I wanted to show them the same level of trust and camaraderie. So that was a great time talking to Cam. My lesson from Yassir. Yassir is amazing. I love his voice. He had the whole mic set up and everything. His voice was crystal clear. His oration is what I strive to have. It's very calming, very soothing. He has a very interesting cadence to his voice, and I think that's just because of who he is. I'm not going to try and copy Yassir, but I love talking to him. If you haven't listened to that podcast, highly recommend you check it out. Just listen to his voice a little bit. Just relax, close your eyes, and just let Yassir serenade you to the sounds of calisthenics and the idea of practice and play. And that's the lesson. That's the lesson that I got from him. He has a great phrase that says, "The practice goes on." And in the podcast, we talked about how the practice goes beyond. And so by that, I mean the practice is not like your gym workout. The practice is not your yoga routine. The practice is not your 5-step morning routine, right? The practice is all of that, actually. The practice is life. And it's a practice because it's never ending. You can always improve in something. You can always look to do something new, add something, take out something. But you're always practicing. Your life is always a practice to work through, to have fun through, and to tie that into play. Your practice is something where you can play. He really helped me be comfortable with the fact that, maybe when I do have my own children, I can be playful with them. I'm always afraid of, I'm going to be a stern, strict father, because that's what I knew. But I want to be more playful with them. I want to be more open with them. I want to be more inviting. I want to do things with them as opposed to, I'm doing this, you do that, don't copy me. Things like that, right? So I want to play a lot more, both now and in the future. So, play kind of helps me be not so serious. Let me not be so serious. Let me not be so stuck up. Let me not be so tense. And just see where that goes. Back to one of my personal lessons. This is more of a goal than a lesson, but I wrote down better questions, better insights, better conversations. So initially, when I'm talking to somebody, I have some general rudimentary questions, essentially, that, I think are just general questions that somebody who's listening would want to know, because I haven't called a guest on to talk about something specific. I've just called them on to talk, and then we talk about a variety of things. So the questions are a little bit more higher level, but I want to work on targeted questions, really kind of, really trying to learn something new for my guests. I'm curious about this specific thing. Please share with me your experience with it, your knowledge with it, etc. Better insights is basically, what am I bringing to the table? What am I bringing to the conversation? I'm never going to be able to get rid of this transactional relationships concept that I have. I've always had this, and I think I always will. I don't mind it though. So by that, I mean, if I'm calling somebody on to talk to me on the podcast, I very much want to hear what they say, because whatever they say is going to provide me and us value, but I really want to provide value to them in the terms of maybe insights that they've never heard before, or kind of have a back and forth in the conversation. I don't want them to feel like they're specifically in an interview, right? I want it to be a back and forth. I want it to be both of us talking together, providing value to each other, talking like, oh, think about this, or I heard this, or I saw this recently, or, what do you think about this? I learned this interesting insight quote. Have you read this book? Have you seen this article? Those things like that, right? And maybe that's just an influence that I'm getting from the podcast that I watch. But once again, it's just me working towards what I would want to watch and listen to. So I want to bring that to this podcast as well. So that's what I mean by better insights. And that kind of ties into better conversations, right? Just working on the flow of a conversation, listening, asking, knowing when to ask a new question versus providing commentary, kind of feeling that out. It'll come naturally at some point, but initially it has to be at some sort of present, intentional act and thought that I have to do. But it's going to be fun. For my good friend Kia, known her for years. I love her work. She brings a very fresh perspective to my viewpoint in terms of health, life, and good life, etc. And that's more or less what we talked about in our podcast together, right? Good health leads to more energy and space for creativity, a holistic approach to health, encompassing physical, mental, and spiritual fitness. Coming from a religious Indian background, spiritual fitness is something very important to our family, to our culture, right? We pray, we go to temples, we go to like events of like we have coming of age ceremonies and things like that in our culture as well. And so all of that kind of goes into spirit, but spirit also means, how calm are you with yourself? Are you one with yourself? Are you in combat with yourself? Things that don't tie to religion, but tied to more so your overall soul, your being. I find that interesting. I find that there's times when I'm working through those things, whether I know it or not. And there's times when I'm working through my mental fitness. I don't meditate. I don't do breathing exercises, things like that. I go to therapy. Fun time, super fun time. Really appreciate my therapist. She challenges me a lot. And I've told her this. I was like, I like that. I like it. I like when you tell me something, when I say something and you challenge what I'm saying. I also just recently became aware in this, like as we're talking, that I haven't been opening my mouth to enunciate. So just breaking the fourth wall here to talk about that again. And then now we're going to go right back to talking about therapy. I really appreciate when my therapist challenges me of, I'll say something and she'll say, okay, but what does that mean? Like, what do you mean by that when you say that? And then I have to step back and think, what did I mean? Did I say that intentionally? Was there a meaning behind it? Did I say that unintentionally? And that's just what came out. So, in terms of my mental fitness, I think therapy is the biggest tool there for me right now. And the second biggest tool is still talking to friends and catching up with friends. I'm still constantly trying to find times to do that. It's, depending on who's available, who I've talked to recently, who I haven't. I caught up with 3 friends over last week and the weekend, and it was amazing. One was 30 minutes, one was an hour, another one was an hour. Time doesn't matter. It was more so the quality of the conversation, and they were all great. It made my heart feel really good. Speaking of that, I was catching up with a friend of mine, and we were talking about just kind of having dropped the ball in terms of catching up with people, or maybe dropping contact with certain friends that we didn't intend to, but life got a little bit busy, so we ended up having to. And I had drawn the comparison between myself and some, just normal people around me, right? A normal person, this is the way I think, right? A normal person might think, I'm trying to invest time and energy into this friendship. It feels one-sided. So maybe I should pull back and not invest as much energy and time. But if I pull back, we just don't talk anymore. There's no energy coming from them. There's no initiation from them. Why am I always the one initiating? It makes me feel like this is one-sided, and maybe they don't think of me at the same level of friend as I think of them. I feel like that's normal. It's completely normal. See, I'm built different. I'm selfish as fuck. So what I told her was, If I want to talk to somebody, I'm going to message them to talk to them when I want to talk to them. And then I will try and get them on a phone call to talk because I want to talk to them. I want to catch up with them. I want to know how they're doing. It also makes me feel really great when I talk to friends. I like that feeling. I'm selfish in liking that feeling, and therefore I will go initiate as many times as I need to talk to them, learn about them, catch up with them, be more involved in their lives, because I like the feeling of doing that. That is solely for me. It's almost not for them, it's for me. So I will do it as many times as I want to. There are friends that I reached out to since November to try and get on a call to chat, and we just haven't yet. If you go back in my messages, you'll see I'm the one initiating every single one of those. I have no problem with that because I want to talk to them. And therefore, if I want to do it, I'm just going to try my best to do it. That's just how it is. So part of my mental fitness is doing things that I want to do, you know? And if a friend didn't want to talk to me, I trust them to say, I'm busy right now. Sorry, I can't. If they want to ghost me, they can. That's fine. I'll reach out every month, one message. Hey, you want to talk this month? No, next time. Next one. It's made me very resilient to this form of passive rejection, which is a really interesting concept I just thought of. But this is essentially a form of passive rejection. If somebody is intentionally ghosting you, it's a form of passive rejection. We feel rejected when people don't respond to specific questions, calls to action, etc. And I used to feel really bad about it. I actually did. JB, if you're listening to this, I don't think he is, but I was catching up with one of my friends, and I messaged him a couple of times. Super busy guy. Messaged him a couple of times. He didn't respond, and so I literally one like Tuesday I was like, does he? Are we not friends like the way I thought we were friends? Maybe we're not. Maybe we're just like internet friends, and we don't really talk like that. I was like in my own head about this. I was like very hyper aware. I was thinking, what are we? What are we? And then 2 days later he responded like, hey, so sorry. Is that date still open? Let's set up this time. Let's do it. And I was like, dope. Heck yeah. Right? I told all of my friends, you give me a time and I'll make it work. Because I want them to know that, or not, I don't want them to know. I know that if I want something, I'll make it happen. And so if they're available to talk, I'll make it happen. Unless I have a meeting at work, I'll make it happen. Shout out to my wife. She has been very, very gracious with relinquishing a little bit of our evening time together, knowing that I also think these calls are important to me. Shout out to her. She's been a real one. But yeah, that's my mental fitness. And then physical fitness, workouts are there. I really gotta get back in the gym, bro. We had ice up here in Pennsylvania, and so I had woken up one morning to try to scrape off the ice off my wife's car before she had to get in the car to go to work. Because I work from home, she had to go into work at 6 a.m. in the morning. But it was icy; it wasn't snow outside. I was starting to slip, so when I was walking down our outdoor stairs, I was very careful, had my hand on the handrail and everything. And 3 steps in, my foot slipped and I couldn't control it because there was nowhere to grip. And so I ended up literally sliding down the entire like set of steps all the way to the ground and then falling on my butt. Thankfully, no tailbone issues, nothing like that. Thank God. I think the workouts are helping with my body being more resilient, but my hands got cut up. So this is for you audio listeners only. In the camera, I'm showing a scratch that happened on my palm, and then 2 scratches that happen on my fingers. And these are basically like we have some fairy lights or etc. or things like that. Not fairy lights, but just outdoor lights on our staircase for just lighting at nighttime when it's really dark. And I had gripped the handrail and the lights are intertwined all down the handrail. So I grabbed the handrail. It was also icy, so there was no grip there. And my hand just slid with the lights down entire like length of the handrail along with my feet. So everything just got scratched up. So I've been out of commission from the gym for a couple of days. Once again, I keep hurting myself. I don't know what's happening. So I'm trying to be very careful. I promise. So I haven't been really pushing myself in the gym, but I think it's okay. I think it's been a lot of like transitioning things happening again. So once we get back into it, physical fitness is gonna be up there. More personal lessons. This one goes hand in hand. Timing of questions and making people feel comfortable. This was actually an insight from my episode with Gabo, where, right at the beginning, I'd asked him kind of what, how was it growing Saturna movement for the past 6 years? What obstacles did you face? Like, catching me up through the story of like how that rapid growth was. And if you listen back to it, he was very, very eloquent and detailed in what he said. But later we were talking, he was like, there were still more things I wanted to say, but because it was like the first question that was asked, I said what I could, but then throughout the rest of the podcast, I was thinking, oh, I could have mentioned that at the beginning, or I could have mentioned that, right? And it made me kind of realize that, they don't know exactly what I'm going to ask in what order. My role as the host is to make them feel as comfortable as possible. And so kind of understanding which questions do I want to ask them when. Like this question right off the back, when they get into it, maybe this would be an easier question for them to ask for us to kind of get the ball rolling. And then I'll go into the deeper questions afterwards once they're comfortable at speaking and talking and sharing. So that was interesting. That was an interesting thing to think about. And something just to think about going forward, of timing of questions, making sure people are comfortable. That's the most important thing to me, is if somebody's coming to come talk to me, it shouldn't be like specifically an interview. I want them to feel comfortable sharing. I want to know more. There's things I want to ask them, want to know about. And so I want them comfortable sharing to as much detail as they want, or be as undetailed as they want. That's not a word, but we're going to make it one. And then 2 more personal lessons. I'll just get these out of the way, then we'll go to the other podcast lessons. One of them was editing the footage and the clips. I'm constantly working on making sure that the editing process is more refined so I can do it more easily to get this out to people, not having to risk any time crunches on getting this out uploaded. The clips, making them good clips, things that people want to listen to and watch. I hate social media. I hate posting on social media. Quite literally, my Instagram account for this, and the Goal Podcast on Instagram, is simply like an archive of just clips from the podcast, just because I want some place to keep like bite-sized pieces of it. And so I clip out bite-sized topic pieces that I think are just, together, just a fun thing to watch. Sometimes it's comedic and bantery, sometimes it's informational. But that's just like an archive of things, right? So it's not, made to go viral. It's not anything like aggressively curated or overly engineered, dopaminergic, etc. But once again, I want to do a better job of making sure the clips are good quality, captions are nice, audio and video line up, all those things. Make them better for people who are watching those as well. And then great guests. My goal is to bring on great guests. Great guests do not mean the most popular guests. I feel like great guests mean people who have great stories. There's a lot of people in my circle that y'all don't even know, but their stories are amazing. They're really interesting people, and I want to bring them to you. And I want to be able to share their story. That's really just it. All right, moving on. We got 3 more. 3 more lessons from guests. The next one's from Andy. Andy is probably like a peer role model in my eyes. He is somebody who is who is what I wish I could be, but I'm working towards being that in my own way. He said, "Don't wait to be ready, just do it. Anything hard to achieve is going to involve hard work and pain." And the example that he used in our podcast was, if you run a 10-minute mile and you're trying to get down to a 6-minute mile, and every time you run that mile, you're going to push yourself so hard, you're going to throw up at the end of that mile or the end of that running set, and you've only shaved off 5 seconds. But every single time you do that, eventually you're going to overcome, get through it, and then get to your goal. But it's going to involve pain. It's going to involve obstacles and hardships. You have to accept that, and just when it happens, and then you work through it. I've been working with a PT, or a physical trainer rather, at my gym to help me kind of get back into more functional training, because I've been just lifting for a while and I haven't been in calisthenics as much. And so I've had this issue where if I'm doing any sort of circuit training and it gets my heart rate too high, I feel very sick, very nauseated, very queasy, feel like I want to vomit. And that can happen from like 2 sets or 2 rounds, etc., essentially, of a circuit. And it's really frustrating, given that I used to be able to dance for hours, train for 2 hours calisthenics, and not feel that way. When I was training with JB for American Ninja Warrior, I got to the point of being able to get to those workouts and not feel sick. I felt something else, but that's besides the point. So I want to get back to that point, because I can understand that I've lost a lot of shape. My cardiovascular strength is non-existent. It's non-existent. So I just need to work towards that, right? But every single one of these sessions that I'm working with the PT, I can feel like, okay, the first session got through 2 rounds. That was it, and I felt queasy. That was it. Second session, I got through 3 rounds. And then we went to the weightlifting side, and he showed me a couple of shoulder bar exercises on the Smith machine. And then I got through 2 different exercises, and then I felt queasy. Crazy. Third time I went to him, we got through the circuit. We went to go do chest. We got through, I think, 4. We were on the 4th exercise, which was essentially just tricep extensions. But by then, my body was like, okay, we're losing internal pressure. Like, you're dying. Like, calm down. And I said, okay, now I'm done. So I can feel myself getting better, but it always involves going to this point of queasiness, exhaustion, nausea. So every time I feel like that, I think about what Andy said, and I think it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be painful. Just do it. Get through it. That's it. So love him for that. Gabo's was crazy. A lot of my friends, I sent them Gabo's podcast, and they really liked it. They really, really liked it. But my biggest takeaway from his was, he said, it takes a lot to build something great. We can do anything, but we cannot do everything. And it requires focus, attention, skill, consistency, and less distractions. You have to eliminate distractions in order to achieve what you want. Something that I'm still working on now, right? Opal app, trying to use that to limit my social media time and constantly the need to pick up my phone. Trying to plan out certain episodes and topics and work time to, because I know that, okay, maybe in the mornings I'm more susceptible to my phone. So let me plan something to do specifically in the morning so that I have something to do to immediately engage my mind. Because if my mind wanders forward too long, I will simply just sit and do nothing. Like the past couple of mornings, I've been sitting and doing nothing. And I told myself, you need to tell yourself in the morning, if you cannot think of anything to do, read a book. Read something. If you cannot think of anything to do, read something. That is the advice or like the one line mantra I'm trying to say to myself just to get me through like this little bit of funk that I'm having of like, you don't know what to do, read. That's it. You don't know what to do, read. So hopefully that goes well. And the last one is the podcast with Jacob. Love that man's. That podcast was literally just two dudes catching up and reminiscing on life. It was 2 hours. It was the longest session I've had, and it was just talking to a friend and just talking. You'll see a lot of the things that I was talking about fillers and stuttering and stammering and questions and all these things. I listened back to the podcast and thought, yeah, I could have improved on my oration. I could have improved on a lot of things, but the most important thing was I want to talk to him as a friend, as I would talk to him if I was on the phone with him right now. And I don't want to have to think about those things in the moment. Make sure he's comfortable, make sure he's having a good time sharing. And, I think he was very, very great, a very great guest, very knowledgeable. He's very open. He's a very open person. And I appreciate that what he was willing to share and to what detail he was willing to share it. Love the man. He had said something about, him opening up his new dance studio and how he's happy that there's like an avenue of slow growth for them. Like he has the ability and time and the space to see like improvement areas and work to improve on them without feeling the pressure to do it immediately. And if it doesn't go right, it's going to be a big deal, right? What I wrote down was the blessing of slower growth. Slower growth brings more space for reflection and practice. You get to see any mistakes and you get to improve on them. Something that my buddy Julian had always reminded me when I was talking about my book channel not blowing up and nothing going viral, and maybe I'm just really bad at this, maybe I really suck at this, I'm not getting any sort of big booms, I'm just very unlucky, all of these things, right? And he told me, listen, the faster you rise, the faster you fall. The faster you rise, the heavier you fall. The faster you rise, the further you fall. You having the opportunity to build something slowly from the ground up is going to better fortify you towards the future into what you're actually trying to do with either a community or your reviews or whatever it is. It's going to solidify you even more than having a couple of videos blow up, because then if the next one doesn't, you don't know how to take it. You're going to be really upset with yourself. You're going to maybe say bad things to yourself, etc. Right? So I always I try to remind myself, appreciate the fact that you're getting the chance to build something slowly from the ground up with hopefully people who are going to stick around for the long run versus people who are there for the hype and then gone when the hype's gone. So those were the lessons from these first 7 or so podcasts with guests and the past 8 or 9 podcasts that I've done just with the season coming back. I don't remember the number at this time. I'm going to try and do these every time I have a good set of guests that have come on. We'll come back in for another lesson recap with you guys, and hopefully this helps you as much as it helped me to talk about this. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'm going to call it here. Take it easy. Keep doing your thing. Keep climbing up. I appreciate y'all. Peace.